Hello, sports card collectors and investors. I hope everybody is having a great weekend. It is Sunday night, and I'm going to go ahead and hit on another football episode here, football cards. It's Sunday, so and I think I've talked about this in previous episodes. I am a massive football fan, huge New Orleans Saints fan, and I'm just really ready for football to come back. I'm a desperate man at this point, so. I want to talk about football cards. I know we talk a lot about basketball cards. Baseball, it looks like, is going to come back, knock on wood. But the NFL, there's still, I saw Dr. Fauci is saying that maybe, if the NFL doesn't play in a bubble, that he doesn't know how they're going to be able to come back properly. And so I'm just thinking, my gosh, please don't throw a wrench into my football season. That was the one where I was thinking, like, okay, that league is going to go through, figure it out. They'll have a good process in place, and they're going to make it happen. But we just don't know. Everything is so up in the air. I feel like just life in general is that way. So, but today I'm going to focus on football cards. So if you have not subscribed already, we have over 100 episodes that are sports card investing focused. We talk about football, basketball, baseball cards, what's going on in sports, trends that we're seeing, and so forth. So join us on this ride. Subscribe now. We're almost to 1,500 subscribers. So we've made a lot of headway over the last almost 3 months of the channel being active. And thank you so much for sticking with us and watching here on a daily, weekly basis. We really love doing this and glad to have you guys. So I'll go ahead and dig right into it. So for this episode, look, guys, I'm just going to cut right to it. We hear a lot of talk about guys like Kyler Murray and Dak Prescott and Tom Brady, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I know that those guys are... I know why they're popular. I think that they certainly have upside. Tom Brady's the GOAT, so I understand all of that conversation. And I talk about other QBs. Of course, I'm a Drew Brees homer, so I talk about him, Rodgers, Roethlisberger as Hall of Fame QBs. For this episode, though, I'm going to focus on under-the-radar players that are not really being talked about that much. Not that I'm seeing anyway. Maybe other channels are talking about it, but I am just not seeing much content at all on it. And so what I was doing is I was looking at, okay, who am I going to target as kind of my, I'm going to roll the dice on a few players. And I'm even broken one of my rules here. I typically only stick with quarterbacks when I'm investing in football cards. I understand. You don't have to tell me in the comments. I know the golden rule. QBs only. Stay away from defensive players. Stay away from running backs. Stay away from wide receivers. I do have a couple other players outside of QBs on this list. So stay with me. Hear me out, and we'll go from there. So anyway, let me go ahead and dig into it. The first card on my list is the 2016 Derrick Henry Raw Optic Holo rookie card. And yes, this is a running back, and I know, running backs with the injury risk and everything else. I was looking at pricing on this, and I've talked about, in yesterday's episode, I talked about Optic Holo being just a huge, huge focus of mine. These rookie cards, Raw Optic Holos, are $10-15. And Derrick Henry is a top 3 running back in the NFL. I think we saw last year how dominant he can be. I mean, he took the Titans on his back through the playoffs. He really beat the Patriots by himself. I think Tannehill threw like 5 passes against the Patriots in the playoffs. They just played great defense, and he ran the ball, I think, 40 times for 400 yards. I mean, it was insane. And I know you guys were watching that too. So, no, I don't typically buy running backs at all, outside of Alvin Kamara, but that's more of a PC, Saints thing for me. But Derrick Henry, and I'm just looking, look, he's on kind of those 1-year contract. He has not signed a long-term deal with the Titans, so he's heavily motivated, to play well. And I'm just thinking, look, is this a guy I'm holding on to for 5 years? No, absolutely not. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at these $10-15, maybe add a few of them, and then if the Titans go on a run, he has some big breakouts. As those cards kind of move, hopefully they move up, and then look to flip them at that point. This is not a long-term hold for me. This is more of just, he has a hot streak during the season, and maybe prices go up and there's an opportunity to sell. All right, next up, I'm going back to QBs, but I'm going to pick one that, and I have heard a couple people talk about this guy, a little under the radar, well, way under the radar. He falls into this middle of the pack QB batch that I like to call it, Matthew Stafford. And I know what you're thinking. This guy is oft injured. He plays for the Lions. He's had some good stat years, but he's never really done much. He hasn't done anything in the postseason. Totally get it. I couldn't agree more. But if we're looking at just under the radar guys, the Lions have been extremely unlucky the last few years with injuries and referees, honestly. If we look at the Packers-Lions game last year, I think that's a good indication. Now, granted, it's the NFL, there's a lot of reffing issues, I would say, in general. But the Lions have just had bad luck, whether it be injuries or everything else. Their starting quarterback goes out. I mean, come on. So I'm looking at Stafford having a little bit of a bounce back. I'm not saying the guy's going to go win the Super Bowl, but I don't think he really needs to for his cards to make some moves. So if you're looking at his cards, 2009 Stafford Topps Finest or Bowman Chrome rookie cards and a PSA 10 are right in the $60 to $70 range is what they're selling for. So again, I mean, you're not throwing a ton of money into the guy, but it's $60, $70 for a nice looking PSA 10 rookie card for Stafford. I might take a shot at it. Why not? He is a good quarterback. He's just, he hasn't been able to get his team over the hump. But you know what? That's 20 QBs in the NFL. That's a lot of quarterbacks, frankly, that haven't gotten their team over the hump. So he's one where it's like, you know what? That's an outside, it's 60, 70 bucks. Maybe I give it a shot. So he's my second pick. Next up, I've got a guy that broke out last season after really kind of flailing with the Dolphins, but everyone flails with the Dolphins, so we'll see how Tua does there. But Ryan Tannehill, 2012 Topps Ryan Tannehill rookie cards in a PSA 10 are selling for 25 to 30 bucks. And then if you wanted to get a Topps Chrome, there's a couple of sales there that are about 40 bucks. So I would probably get a Topps Chrome if I found one in that 40, maybe even $50 range. Tannehill might have actually a really good career ahead of him. He actually, statistically, and granted, I know Henry really drove that bus last year for the Titans, but Tannehill had a very, very good year. He made really good decisions. I mean, and maybe that was his turning point. He turned the corner, and now he's, maybe he's a top flight QB in the NFL for the next 5-10 years. Who knows? Anyway, it's an inexpensive one. It's an inexpensive card. These are inexpensive cards to get in on a player that's really kind of on the rise after last season. So, again, kind of under the radar. No one's really talking about him. He's not one of the top 7-8 quarterbacks in the NFL, not even probably top 10, I would say. But he's a guy that really played well last year, and who knows? Let's see what he's got. Next up, I'm going way under the radar. People are going to think I'm absolutely crazy, but again, it's price point, and I'm hedging against Dak Prescott, and that is Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton is a good quarterback. Now, granted, he didn't get his team over the hump in Cincinnati. He went to the playoffs 4 years in a row with Cincinnati. Couldn't get anything done, but the guy as a whole, he is a good quarterback in the league. He didn't always have the best supporting cast around him. And his rookie cards, 2011 Topps base rookie card in a PSA 10 is selling for 20 to 25 bucks. And that's a graded card. I mean, we talk about this all the time on this show. The grade itself is $10, $15. Now PSA's price just went up again. So, if you're looking at a $20, $25 card that's PSA graded, again, this is just, hey, if you want to just, give a shot at, some of these under the radar players, I don't think that Andy Dalton's career is over. Whether he ends up playing for the Cowboys or somebody else, I think that Dalton still has room there. He's still a fairly young guy. He's healthy. I think that he's still got some room to grow, but I think that he's overall a very good quarterback in the league. So we'll see what happens with him. And then lastly, I'm going with, this is not a rookie card, but I'm going with Russell Wilson. So Russell Wilson, kind of the forgotten man early in his career, won a Super Bowl with, a top flight defense in Seattle. Now his team they've always been competitive. The Seahawks are always competitive. But if you look at last year too, though, I mean, the Seahawks, I didn't think that on paper they were as good as the 49ers, but they were a hair away really from beating the 49ers right at there at the end of the season. And then I believe it would have moved up their playoff seed from like 4-2 or 5-2 or something. There was a ton. I don't know if you guys remember that game, but the Seahawks 49ers game, I believe, was the last game of the season. I think it came down to a goal line stand by the 49ers, but it was a difference in seeding from, I think, the 49ers having the 1 And then if they had lost, the 49ers would have had like the 5 seed. I mean, it was huge. So I guess my point is that the Seahawks are right there. They're right there, and they play in a very, very tough division that's really only getting better with Arizona making gains. And so Russell Wilson, he just keeps on doing his thing. I mean, he's just crushes it. And so this one I picked actually first year optic, 2016 optic hollows, raw of Russell Wilson. Optic hollows are $12 to $20. And that's first year optic. I really, really like that set. I know I talk about it all the time. But again, Russell Wilson is in that top, I mean, he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. And for him to have those optic hollows in the first year of optic at $12 to $20. And I think that what we have to do, I am of the opinion, I could be completely wrong on this. Football cards, as far as values go and pricing, they fall behind basketball, they fall behind baseball. But are they, I feel like they are set to move into that same echelon. And if they do, and I understand that in basketball you have a lot of different players to invest in basketball at different positions, whereas in football it's really QBs is what we're talking about mostly. But that speaks even more to how I believe that QB investments, card investments, are going to rise. That's I'm taking that theory and I'm going to run with it. I've put some resources into some of the Hall of Fame guys. I've talked about it: Breeze, Roethlisberger, Rodgers, Tom Brady. But although Tom Brady's pricing was already a little too high before I wanted to get into it, so I'm focused around a lot of these QBs because I think that as sports cards, as the demand keeps on rising, and I do believe that demand is going to keep rising in this market, I do think that's going to filter back over to football more so than it did last year. It did last year. You saw a spike with Mahomes, you saw a spike with Lamar Jackson, but the market today is in a lot more demand than it was when football season started last year. It's wild. So. And again, who knows? There's so many different variables with COVID, with everything that's going on. Who knows if that'll actually happen where football cards will start getting some more love. But to me, I mean, if we're talking about soccer cards getting more love and tennis cards and golf cards, why wouldn't the modern football cards get some more love? And I know Mahomes has been priced pretty high, but I think a lot of these other quarterbacks are going to see gains. Assuming that they have a good start to the season, they have good seasons. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited about it, and I know I'm going to get a lot of comments about how I'm crazy about some of these picks, and that's perfectly fine. Like I said, guys, I'm just looking at these as under the radar, outside of the box thinking, type picks. These are not my bread and butter by any stretch, but these are guys that I think could have some breakout potential and could mean rise in prices. So hey, thanks for sticking around. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and we will talk to you again later. Thanks.